Yo, Elliott.
Yo, Elliott, I want to ask about issues with my in-laws. My wife's parents visit frequently and come stay with us. Since they live overseas, it can be up to several months at a time. So basically, they live with us. They have been coming and going for about 10 years. I don't like this and never have. We get along for the most part, but I also need my space as an introvert, and I don't like living with others outside of my immediate family. I see the benefit of having them help out with the kids, but it doesn't seem like they help too much. They're more interested in seeing what's going on, spending time with my wife, sitting around and talking, and generally questioning, criticizing what we do. My wife doesn't have the best boundaries with them, and it's hard time saying no. We will be moving to another state later this year, and I just recently found out her parents will be following us to live in the same area. Oh, whippy. I'm not looking forward to this, and it seems like the problem won't go away even after we move. Any tips or advice on how to handle the situation would be appreciated. So, warning to all fellas, when you marry a woman, you marry her family. And that has to be considered. You marry a woman, guess what's coming along with her? Her mom and her dad and her sister and all that. My wife's family is a little different than my family. And I knew that going into it, and I hedge my bets, right? And so you got to do that. You got to hedge your bets. You're like, look, I love this woman and I'm willing to deal with what she comes with. And when you love a woman, you know what? You do. You take that on. You take it on. You take on whatever she's coming with. And if it, the family isn't as savory as you would like, then guess what, brother? You get to carry your cross. You get to sacrifice as a man. It's good to make known your concerns. It's good to make known your boundaries. It's good to be made known even to your in-laws where you stand on certain things. You don't bend. This is the part of the sacrifice anyway, too, just to be clear. Sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean bend to other people's will. It doesn't always mean that. It could mean that, but sacrifice could also mean I got to speak up where it's uncomfortable right now. Don't get me wrong. There's a hierarchy of sacrifices. And if what they're doing and saying is detrimental to your marriage or to your vocation as father and caring for your children, then the sacrifice for you is I have to speak up and I have to tell you no. I had to deal with this with my mother-in-law at some point too. She was undermining our authority, and that had to be addressed. You could have different opinions. You could whine and complain. You could, maybe do things that I don't like. But if you undermine my authority in my home, whoa, stop. Now, out of charity, I've invited you in here. Not obligation. In fact, you don't have obligation to your mother's parents the same way that you do to your parents. Because what happens in the marriage act? When you marry your wife, what happens? The father gives her over to you. Now, I know we take it for granted today. It's all ceremonial BS, but there's a reason why it's a certain way. And there's a reason why she takes your last name. Is because she no longer is under the authority of her father. She's passed under the authority of you. And so now her allegiance is to you, not her parents. And so if anything threatens her relationship with you, it needs to be dealt with. And her parents don't take precedence over her relationship with you. And so if your marriage is threatened by their presence, that needs to be addressed. So a part of the sacrifice, right? Because it could be quick. You could quick to say, "Oh, Elliott means sacrifice in terms of, just let them do whatever they want to do. I'm going to bite my lip and suck it up." No, that's not what I'm saying. That might be what you need to do at certain times for certain things, but when it threatens what you're going to be held responsible for, you're going to be held responsible for the integrity of your family. And Jesus is going to ask you on your judgment, he's going to say, "Hey, why didn't you speak up to this old lady when she was undermining your authority with your wife? Why didn't you speak up when the grandparents or the grandchildren were undermining your authority with the children? I put them under your authority, your responsibility. In your sacramental marriage, you were given responsibility over this woman. So I hold you accountable. You'll be held accountable." So I want that to be known. If they're just annoying, right? If they're just sort of, or you're an introvert, you just don't want to deal with people, well, then that becomes your sacrifice. But if they threaten the integrity of your family, the sacrifice becomes, you know what? Y'all are going to hate me, but this is what I got to say. And if your wife has a hard time setting boundaries and saying no, well, then guess what, buddy? You're going to have to. And in the same way that we talked about offering blessings and withholding blessings, you're going to have to use that with your wife too. When she says, oh, my parents really need X, Y, and Z. Meanwhile, you know, it's taking away from your children. You get to tell her, look, sweetheart, that you do not receive my blessing in that. I understand why you want to do that. I don't agree with it. And it does not get my blessing. Don't eschew power, especially when it's been entrusted to you. I'm not saying use this as a cheap tool for manipulation. That's not it. You don't use power for manipulation. You use power out of charity, meaning what's best for the people that are under your authority. So that's it. If they're criticizing, you got to speak up. You got to say, listen, and use the word undermine, right? Because to criticize is one thing, but to undermine means you're trying to usurp my authority based on my responsibility for the salvation of the souls of the people in my home. I don't take that lightly. When my mother-in-law started doing that, and what she was doing, she was leaning my children towards sin. You're not going to come in here and you're going to spew your opinion and try to sway my children to sin. It wasn't like my mom does this all the time. My mom will like buy the kids, junk food. It's like, all right, look, it's not a grave matter. My children aren't going to go to hell because grandma gave them cookies. But if she's offering them or causing them to sin, then they cannot be taken lightly, and you got to speak up, right? Even if they're not religious, they'll respect that you say that. I think you're religious. And even if you're not religious, it's an important consideration because you're perverting my children's character, right? Maybe you don't believe in hell. You're perverting my children's character by letting them watch certain things or believe certain things. So that's it. That's all. That's my opinion on that, dude. Hope that helps. Done.
Yo, Elliott.